Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just so you know, we're starting off, everyone is on mute. I always say, keep it cute, stay on mute, because we have so many people here today and we really want to be able to get through the conversation. But the beautiful thing is we have chat. So I would love to know where everyone is. Previously, we were able to meet in person, but there is a beauty to doing these virtual events because around the world, there's that juicy baby, Whitney, around the world, we get to be together. And so for that, I'm very thankful. Thank you everyone for taking time and joining us today. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes. We're gonna let people arrive and get together. Grab yourself a glass of wine or water, whatever you need, and we'll get started in a few moments. Please feel free in the chat to tell us where you're at. I'm today happily at the Santa Monica Clinic with Dr. Brower, and we're here to have an awesome conversation and talk to our awesome patients. What's really awesome is that we have not one, not two, but 3 babies. I can count that high, beautiful, kind babies that are part of our family building and past to parenthood. And it all doesn't look the same, but we're all here really for the same goal with fertility preservation and for family building. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I also have some wonderful team that is helping me from Rebecca in New York. I've got Dr. Garvin. She's one of our newest physicians. We wave Dr. Garvin right there. She's here with us in Santa Monica, but we'll be at our Atlanta location very soon. I have Lisa Greenacre, one of our nurse practitioners. We've got so many people here to help. So feel free, please put in the chat where you're from. And then as we get started, Dr. Brower is going to go through basically very quickly, because we really want to get to the conversations, but we're going to go through an overview of fertility preservation and family building. And then Whitney's going to ask some questions of our panel. And then I also have our wonderful couple who is going to start to share their journey, Heaven and Rita, who are here, who are just about to start. And they're going to also talk to our panel about some of their questions as they're beginning their journey as well. So in just 2 more minutes, we'll get started, but welcome. And then if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, whether if it's about the medical piece of it or a personal journey piece of it, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if you don't feel comfortable, you can also message me privately, and I'm more than happy to ask it as a question to the group. And usually as we go through, we're able to answer most of the questions, but we'll get through everything as we go. So without further ado, I'd like to say welcome, welcome, welcome. Truly, we're happy to have you here as part of our Kind Body community. And even I say family, and everyone that's here as far as our panel, I really do consider them family because they're part of this wonderful quilt of babies and fertility preservation and advocates that are really going towards really showing that all paths to parenthood don't look the same, but guess what? We're all here together to educate and communicate. And I always feel deeply to empower people through information. So thank you for joining us today. I'm gonna start a little bit off the top. I have Nisha, who's here from New York. She's joining us. She has frozen her eggs and is gonna talk to us a little bit. Nisha, you say hello?
Hi, thanks for joining.
I'm so sorry. I totally took your, what I gave everyone prompts of what they were supposed to say, and then I did the opposite of that. So let me try this again. Shanae, would you like to say hello?
Hi, yes, I'm Shanae. I'm a content creator and I froze my eggs. They're officially on ice.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And then, hi Maritza and Helen. Welcome, you guys. And there's our other baby. Look at our baby. No, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to talk to you tonight. And then, of course, our wonderful, my co-host in trouble, my wonderful Whitney. Welcome. And I know show us that beautiful baby again, too, please.
I know. So my name is Whitney, and I had IUI done with the assistance of Dr. Brower, And we have created this little bundle of love right here, who's currently at the buffet.
Yes. He's at the smorgasbord, the milk smorgasbord. And last but not least, one of my coworkers who is so amazing and really has been so wonderful to share her journey with us is Emmy Gabiola. She just came back from maternity leave. And Emmy, where are you?
I'm right here. Hi.
Yeah. Welcome.
I'm the clinic director for Kindbody San Francisco. I just had my baby girl, Mila, July 30th, but I wanted to share my journey. We've been through 5 years of fertility treatments, 3 IUIs, 4 IVFs, 1 miscarriage, but we finally made it, and Mila will be joining us shortly. I'll bring her on in a minute.
Yay. Oh, that's great. It makes my heart so happy. And Heaven and Rita, who are just starting, I would love for you to say hello as well.
Hi.
Okay, be ready. Buckle up. Are you taking notes? Are you ready to get it in? Here we go.
Yeah, I do. Ready.
Wonderful. I'd love to introduce Dr. Brower, who is always so amazing with our events and helping everyone, and I appreciate her so much in our conversations about family building. Hi, Dr. Brower. Oh, we've muted her. Poor.
Hi, thank you, Tracy. So I think, do you want me, I'm going to share my slides. Should we get going?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So I have the boring part of the night. I'm here to sort of share some of the medical background. So all these wonderful people who are going to be here talking with you tonight have done some type of, have had some intervention or seen a doctor and had some assistance in starting their families, even if that first step was to start a family in the future. So I have the job of talking about the different ways that the different paths to parenthood, essentially. And then, so I won't take up too much time because I do think a lot of the sort of the juice of this will be in hearing everybody's stories and their personal experiences with these treatments that I'm going to sort of review in a more medical sense. So I'll get through the boring medical part as quickly as possible, and then we'll get to talk to everybody and hear about how they experienced it, all these various treatments that we're going to talk about. And not just the treatments, but sort of also the assessment and the information gathering they did before deciding on their treatments. And also their decision making in deciding how to move forward. So again, thank you so much to Tracy. Thank you so much for all of our guest speakers to be here to share their stories, their personal stories, and to everybody who's here to listen. So again, Tracy had to do a sort of brief introduction of all these wonderful women who are going to share their stories with us in just a few minutes. And I guess I'll start by introducing you to Kindbody. So if you're not familiar with us as a Kindbody, is that we are a full service fertility clinic. We also offer general gynecologic care. And really our mission is to just do it in a way that is accessible and welcoming to everybody, and also in a way that is just unintimidating, warm, kind, and sort of just again sort of a more comprehensive, friendly, warm approach to women's care and fertility care in general. And we do offer the whole spectrum of fertility services. I like to always start by sort of mentioning or talking about how, as females, really, especially my generation, I do think we're getting better at this, and this is really part of our mission, is that so much of the information that we're given about our reproductive health as young women is about contraception, which is important. At a certain time of your life, learning about contraception is important, but we get so much information about how to not get pregnant. And, if I think about going to the gynecologist when I was in my 20s, everyone's just asking me about how are you preventing pregnancy? And nobody really talks to you about, well, what kind of family do you want to have? And when do you want to have it? And what are your reproductive goals? Because it's really the flip side of the same coin. And so part of what we like to do is just to make that part of the conversation and to educate everybody about their reproductive health, not just in the sense of how to prevent pregnancy, but how to create pregnancy and what kind of information is important for that planning. And we really believe that nobody is too young or too old to learn about their fertility and how their body works in that sort of, in the reproductive sense of you know, getting ready to conceive and what that involves. So we encourage everybody to be proactive to access this information. And again, that's a lot of what we do here. It is true, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but for us as females, we are born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. We don't make any new eggs throughout the course of our lives. And that is really sort of at this problem of the normal process of ovarian aging. For all of us as females, we're born with a certain number of eggs, and over time, we lose eggs. And then the other thing that happens is that the quality of those eggs decline. And so as we get older, you will see in general that there is a decline in fertility. And it's all related to the fact that we're just born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. And it is unfair. I love that. I think Fahima put that there. It's unfair. You know, evolutionarily, I guess, in a way, you know, in a world where women died at 55, like maybe that makes sense, but now we live to be 90. So and our ovaries just haven't caught up, and it is unfair, but it is the reality. And so we encourage everybody to come in and get a sense of where they're at, right? So, and that starts with an assessment. And when you have an initial assessment, the goal of the physician or nurse practitioner, whoever sees you, is to understand largely what your reproductive goals are. You know, where are you at in your life? Are you ready to be pregnant now? Do you want to wait 10 years? How many children do you want? So for us to understand kind of what your reproductive goals are. And then and then we'll give you this information about the normal process of ovarian aging, and then try to assess you as an individual. Where are you at? And one of the things when we do that is to try to get assessment of your egg numbers. As I mentioned previously, you know, egg quantity or egg numbers decline with time. So we try to get a sense of where you're at. We can tell you about averages, but everybody, just like everybody has a different color hair, everybody's going to have a different ovarian reserve. So that's a very important part of this initial assessment. And the way that we do that, we get a sense of egg numbers both with an ultrasound, where we count at the follicles, and as well as an AMH level, which is a blood test. So that's largely what we do, is try to get a sense of your ovarian reserve and really to understand what your personal reproductive goals are, so we can help you understand what your options are. And there are a lot of options, right? We are lucky to live in a time where there are a lot of options for us to try to plan to have the families that we want to have when we want to have them. Here's a list of some of these options here. There's egg-free, and we're going to talk about all of them tonight. And we have people here to talk. We have people who have experienced all these different treatment options, and they're going to be able to tell their personal experiences with those. So, you know, preservation. So sometimes people come in and the best decision is, I'm not ready to be pregnant now, but I want to do something to increase my odds of having a baby with my own eggs in the future. And that is fertility preservation. And fertility preservation can occur as either egg freezing or embryo freezing. And then sometimes people are ready to get pregnant now. They walk in, they're ready, or they walk in and they're not ready, and then they talk to us and they are ready after talking to us. But after leaving the visit, they decide that they are ready to be pregnant. And sort of the treatments that we offer in that category are either inseminations or IVF. So I'm going to start by talking about egg freezing, but really just fertility preservation in general. So the basic concept behind fertility preservation is that, you know, we talked about egg numbers and how to assess that, but egg quality is also important. And egg quality refers to what percentage of the eggs that we have are actually normal eggs that can result in one of these gorgeous babies that you're seeing here today. I can see 3 on my screen, so lucky. So it does take a normal egg to ultimately result in a normal ongoing pregnancy. And so the idea behind fertility preservation is that you're taking your current egg quality, whatever it is at this moment in time, and freezing it. And you can freeze it as an egg or you can freeze it as an embryo, but it freezes that current quality, so that ultimately, if you use those eggs or those embryos, that your chances of getting pregnant aren't based on your age at that time, but they're based on the age at which you froze your eggs or embryos. And that's kind of the basic concept behind preservation. So again, the decision to preserve someone, as I mentioned, when you do that assessment, we're going to get a sense of, how old are you now? When do you want to start your family? Is it now? Is it in the future? How many children do you want? When do you want to have that last child? And all of those things will be very important as you're doing this sort of planning for what your sort of ideal plan is to maximize your chances of having the family you want when you want to have it. So how does this process of fertility preservation work? So what we do in this process is we try to stimulate. So each month your body starts with a group of eggs. Okay, you can sort of see this here. The eggs live in follicles. And what happens in a normal cycle in an ovulatory woman is that they release, one of these follicles get big and you release one mature egg and the rest of the follicles die off, and then you get a new group the following month. In a cycle where we stimulate the ovaries for fertility preservation, we stimulate them, as many of them as possible, to grow at one time. So we teach you how to give yourself injections. All of our panel speakers or some of them can talk to you about what that experience was like. But you give yourself injections, the purpose of which is to stimulate as many eggs to grow as possible at one time. Typically, you take those injections for an average of 10 to 14 days, and then you have a procedure called an egg retrieval. I'm actually going to skip ahead here. The day of the egg retrieval, you'll get sedated. You'll get sedation, sort of a heavy twilight sedation, and while you're sleeping, the doctor will pass a needle into the ovary and take all the eggs out of all the follicles that have developed. Now, one of the most common questions that we'll get is, well, am I worse off now? You just told me I have a certain number of eggs and I'm losing them all the time, and now you're taking 5 out or 10 out or 15 out. Am I any worse off at the end of it? And the reality is no, because in any given month where you don't do something like this, you release one egg and all the others die. So, we really are being opportunistic here, because what we're doing is taking advantage of that whole group, get as many from that group as possible to develop at one time. So you're not any worse off at the end of it for having extracted the whole group of eggs, or as many of the eggs as possible. Then, if you decide to freeze your eggs, those eggs are frozen. And they're frozen until you want to use them. The other question I get really commonly is, well, how can they be frozen for a year? They can be frozen indefinitely. We don't really think that the length of time that they're frozen impacts the outcome in the future. So there is no limit in the amount of time that they can be frozen. Ultimately, when you go to use them, you'll need a sperm source, a donated sperm or a partner's sperm, to fertilize those eggs, turn it into an embryo that can be transferred into the uterus. As I mentioned when I started, fertility preservation can be egg freezing. It can also be embryo freezing, right? So everything is exactly the same up until the day that you take the eggs out. If you decide to do embryo freezing, what happens is the day that the eggs are taken out, you have a sperm source there. Again, it can be a donated sperm, it can be your partner's sperm, but the egg would be fertilized the day that the egg is taken out. And turned into an embryo, and then the embryos would be frozen instead of the eggs. Largely the difference between the two, we don't really think that the outcomes are significantly different in the future, but when you freeze an egg, we still can't test the quality. So there's no testing of the quality of eggs. We just know, okay, this is the number of eggs you have frozen, this is how old you are. We think it's sort of an X% chance of having an egg or of a baby with those eggs in the future. But you can use them however you want. You get to pick your sperm source later if you're not ready to commit to one now. When you freeze an embryo, you commit to a sperm source. There's no one fertilizing it. You will, unless if you use a donor sperm, then there's sort of no contractual obligation to that sperm source. But if it's a partner, then the reality is you'll need the consent of that individual in the future to use the embryos. But the advantage of the embryos is that you can actually get some information about quality as you start to see how those eggs do. Do they fertilize? How do the embryos develop? So you get a lot more information. And then IVF, again, is very similar to all of this. The only difference being that you fertilize the eggs, you make the embryo, and then ultimately the embryos are transferred into the uterus. So what I'd like to do, in a second, I'm going to get to some of our sort of fertility treatments, but we do have two wonderful women here who have decided to freeze their eggs. So if you don't mind, I want to pause for a second and talk to each of them about how they decided to do this in general, and then B, did they ever consider embryos? What was that decision process like for them? And so, Nisha, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and just telling us a little bit again about how did you come to this decision to do this? And then did you ever consider embryos? What was that like for you?
Yeah, happy to explain a little bit. So my decision mainly around why I chose to freeze my eggs was my age. So I knew at the beginning of this year that I'm going to turn 35 this year. And going back to a little bit of what you were saying, Dr. Brower, I think growing up, you keep hearing like the dreaded age of 30 or anything over 30, you're never going to have kids, all these sort of things. And so I kind of had to fact check that. And so I came to one of Kindbody's like 101 sessions earlier this year in January. And I learned exactly what you're presenting today. And so just given my age, given the fact that I wasn't married, or rather I'm single, I should say, all of that combined, I chose that to freeze my eggs this year. In terms of your second question, the embryo, I didn't consider it. I think right now, or as of this year, I was just prepared to do the eggs. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sinead, do you mind telling us the same?
Yes. Okay, I figured out technology today. This is a huge, a big step for me. So I had a moment about probably 6 months ago when I realized I was turning 35, and I had that like, holy crap moment of, oh, the like mother gene is kicking in. I never had that. I always thought I'd be the cool aunt. And then I've been dating someone for about 2 years, and he wants 2 kids. I'm like, well, we should have started a while ago for that. But I decided I think I want one child, and I have massive anxiety, if anyone can relate, and I'm a Virgo. So I knew I could not leave it up to like timing in the universe. I knew I had to have kind of like, some sort of plan that made me feel secure. So my partner and I decided to go through with it. I mean, I'm doing it on my own as my own choice, but he was definitely supportive, although he almost passed out during the shot portion. But we decided to do egg freezing versus embryo, just because I think if we were, not that being married means anything, literally nothing, but we aren't married, and we're not, we haven't made any sort of significant commitments, although that's kind of, hopefully where it's headed. Craig, if you're watching, no, but we're not married yet. So I was like, it feels for me better to do egg freezing rather than embryo freezing. If we did another round after we got married, we'd probably do, we'd probably do embryo freezing. But for now, I was like, I'm still a single lady, technically. So, yeah, and went through the egg freezing process about 2 or 3 months ago. So just finished.
Thank you guys both so much. So yeah, it's always so, it's always so warms my heart when women, because 35, we always use 35 is this magic number. Everybody thinks that something magical, unmagical happens at 35, where all of a sudden I had a patient in today saying, oh, I'm a geriatric pregnancy, and it's actually kind of nice, because at 35, it's actually, things are still the average 35-year-old, it's not a terrible situation yet in the terms of quality. So it's so encouraging to see young women coming in for information. And I see that increasingly all the time. 5 years ago when I did this, I never had 30, 31, 32, 35-year-olds coming in to learn more about their fertility and understand what they were at and understand what was happening with their bodies. And similarly, those women now that are in their early 40s, they never had access to this information. And it's really wonderful, this whole next generation of women that are in their 30s now are learning about what happens, and they understand ovarian aging, and they understand you do have this ability to be proactive. And even if proactive is just getting the information, it's really wonderful and encouraging to see women doing that. So thank you both for sharing. I'm going to talk just a second here about sort of, again, there is overlap, but there also, many of our patients come in and either have been trying for a very long time or are ready to get pregnant using our assistants because they're using donated eggs or donated sperms or adopted embryos. So we'll shift our gears just a little bit to talk about those different options. Fertility treatments for women who are actively trying to get pregnant often include inseminations, and that can be with a donor sperm or a partner sperm, or IVF. And again, IVF, the process of IVF is very similar to what we just described, except that once the embryo is created after the egg is fertilized, then the plan would be to transfer the embryo to determine if it hopefully creates a pregnancy. And then ovulation induction. Some women just don't ovulate regularly and need some assistance in doing that in order to have some chances to try on their own. There are other means for creating families, right? So donated eggs, donated sperm, which we're going to talk about here tonight because some of our wonderful panelists have used donated sperm to create their families, and gestational carriers. So occasionally we have individuals who, for various reasons, can't carry a pregnancy on their own, and we also have the ability for a couple or an individual to create an embryo, and then for ultimately that embryo to be transferred to somebody else's uterus to create a pregnancy. I think I'm just trying to think. So why don't we do this? I'm actually going to gauge. We have Whitney here. So Whitney's going to host, so she's not going to get a chance to share very much. But I know. So Whitney, just to steal her thunder, she used donor sperm to get pregnant. She came in knowing it was time. She wanted to get pregnant right then and there. Or not right then and there. She wanted to learn the information and then get pregnant, and ultimately use donor sperm to get pregnant. So since you're not going to be ultimately sharing your story in great depth tonight, Whitney, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your process and your journey, your decision, how did you choose a sperm donor? How did you decide to do inseminations versus something more aggressive like IVF? And just a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Well, I think first off, we talk about, along with talking about this magical 35 age thing, it's also commonly discussed about there never being a perfect time to have a baby. And for me, I found that kept popping up and kept coming and going. It's like, I was married at one point. I had a great point in my career at one point. Things like that, markers that should have been the time that we say would be the perfect time to have a baby, kept coming and going because it's always something, and I kept finding that to be true. And I found myself being at that time 36 at that time, and seeing my window essentially closing in my head. So I made the decision that the following year, when I was in my 37th year, that I would be embarking on this journey regardless of circumstance, and I was going to make it happen. And that was when I really went in and started learning about my options, and went ahead and did the whole process. And for me, it was just, I knew, and a lot of things popped up along the way, potential relationships, things like that. But I knew for me, this was priority. And just learning all this new information, so much I didn't know initially. And right off the bat, I was initially going to use a known donor, but I realized that tackling down somebody and really pinpointing them down into the very small window that you have to inseminate is a lot. And I knew that my time was essentially closing, and I wanted to maximize my efficiency on the matter, basically. And I knew it was time, it was go time. So when I went in, got tested, everything looked good. I ended up, creating a baseline. What are absolute deal breakers for me? What am I flexible on? And it turns out when I really sat with myself, I was flexible on knowing the donor. So I ended up selecting a sperm donor from Seattle Sperm Bank that was open ID, which to me checked the boxes of at least being able to access this person if need be, and having access to a sibling pool per se. And then just starting the process, because again, I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know if I was going to be successful right off the bat. I had one IUI, it was unsuccessful. And then on the second one, it was successful. And here he is now. He will be 1 month old on Sunday. So yeah, I'm super happy with the process. Again, it was about just creating, I think, something that you know, everybody in here, whether you've started your journey or you are just getting into it now or thinking about it, one thing that I think is really important is creating a kind of a baseline of must-haves and of timelines. Like, what are your absolutes? For me, I knew my absolute was I will be embarking on this journey regardless of circumstances that pop up. For example, a pandemic. Never saw that coming, clearly. But it was about not letting outside influence affect my decisions, because again, there's always going to be something. And if you just keep in mind your ultimate end goal, which is in my circumstance, and I'm sure many people in here, it's conceiving, you know, that's what was most important to me. And again, for me, a baseline was if I wasn't going to know the donor, it was having access to him. So really go through, and if I could recommend something, it would be establishing those kind of baseline deal breakers or things like that, and then moving forward with that. And so, yeah, that was my experience in a nutshell.
Thank you, Whitney. I think Whitney makes, I mean, she always makes really a lot of good points, but I think that, you know, part of the idea here is, like when you said, it's just like really this getting the information and learning about what your options are is just sort of a moment to pause and think about, okay, what are my goals? You know, what is it that I want? And is it, you know, to be, you know, pregnant now or to be pregnant later? Selecting a sperm donor and really sort of facing down what it is, what are the things that are important to you. And so I won't go into too much detail again about what are the things you need to know. We do some sessions like that about when you're selecting a sperm donor, but as Whitney said, it's just kind of you start the journey, you get the support that you need, whether it's, you know, it's going to be a physician, we have third-party counselors who start to talk to everybody about that process of using donor eggs or, you know, donated sperm. What is important to you? So really sitting with yourself and understanding, you know, being honest with yourself about what it is that you want. And so again, and it may be, like I said, deciding what type of treatment to do or how to select a sperm donor, but really kind of, you know, sitting down and getting the information and understanding what you want and what your goals are. So anyway, thank you for sharing that with me. And I think, let's see, I think I'm almost done with my part. This is, again, just, I think that it's just about really taking the time to think about what you want and how you want to move forward with that, and starting to learn more about yourself and just about your reproductive health, or reproductive health in general, is always a great place to start. It's an important form of education that we finally, as modern women, have access to. And so I think Tracy's going to talk a little bit here about costs, and then Whitney's going to start to be our better host here, and interview all of the wonderful women here who are willing to share their stories with us.
Exactly. And I hope, Heaven, Rita, I hope you got some questions a brewing over there too. Oh, good. Well, what I think is important is something that Meredith always says is really know where you stand. And that's like the biggest soapbox I stand on. As someone who's struggled very much in their fertility journey, I really wish I picked my head out of the sand a lot sooner. So if I can do anything, if my breath is worth anything on this conversation, it's not to give you a big sales pitch, but it's really a sales pitch about yourself. And it, like you said, even if you don't know if you want to get pregnant tomorrow or next Tuesday or a week from Thursday, I think it's really important to figure out where you stand. And so part of doing these wonderful events and spending time with us is I'm able to talk about a discount, and that's so wonderful. So anybody that attended this evening, we are offering $1,000 off your cycle, which is, to me, is, I mean, and I worked in this industry for a long time. We really don't do that. Kindbody does, because we're really focused on access to care. And so if you book your consult, we're going to give you $1,000 off a cycle or $200 off an IUI. And then you just put fertility journeys into your, into the promo code. And then they do not charge you until the day of your consult. So don't worry. So even if you're thinking about, you know what, I'm going to commit this to myself at the beginning of the year, however you want to do it, just know that that's when that's when you're actually charged. We also, most insurances do cover a consultation. So call your major medical, figure out if they have a fertility benefit included, because that's really important to find out, because a lot of times you may have insurance, but you don't know exactly what the fertility piece looks like. So I always suggest that very much. So next slide. That's exactly, of course, I'm always ahead of myself. Here we go. So Whitney, so I want to ask you, there's a few questions that came through that before I hand it over to you. One was, what was the most surprising thing about your journey?
All right, you're asking me specifically.
Yeah.
The most surprising thing about my journey, I think it was probably, honestly, I would say the most surprising thing about my journey was being surprised at my steadfastness in following through with it and sticking to my guns about doing this regardless of circumstance. And I know that that might not be a traditional response in terms of, like, people might be like, oh, I was surprised that it didn't hurt, or I was surprised that, you know, I don't know, certain things. But I was surprised that once I made that commitment that I talked about earlier, I was really surprised at my unwavering mobility on it, and sticking through. I was also surprised, a second thing that actually really surprised me was how much I did not know about my own body and about my own fertility, and just how much at every turn, and I'm talking from from fertility testing to preconception to all the way up to when I was delivering in labor, how much we don't know as women about our own bodies, about our options, about things that come up and things that happen. And it's so surprising how little information is relayed to us as women. It really is. And it's something I keep learning new things, like, as time goes on, even in being a new mother.
And I think that's part of the whole thing, is like sex ed was about how to not get pregnant. And then we never, which I felt so gypped on, was that no one tells you when fertility declines. And you see Janet Jackson at 50 living her best life, and all these people out there. And I promise you, most of those people had an egg donor or spent a lot of money, you know, just so many thousands of dollars. And I think it does a detriment that we really have to empower ourselves. And I think that's as you said, such a great message to share. And the second question was, what did you do different? Because your first IUI was unsuccessful. What did you do different? I know we've talked about it before, but I'd love for you to share a little bit of what you did differently for IUI number 2.
Well, you know, I mean, first off, I just want to say that, you know, it's only a certain percentage. It's not like a given that your IUI is going to work, right? So it's a seemingly small percentage that it's going to be successful. So I don't know if you can factually say something I did different specifically was the make or break of my circumstance. I will say, you know, I think that I don't know how many people believe energetically in certain things or setting intentions or whatever. I switched donors. So my initial donor was great, you know, I'm not saying that, but I felt energetically like he wasn't the one, to be honest. And I ended up switching donors to one that really I connected with on a deeper level, that I ended up finding. I also, after I left the Kindbody office, went to the beach and did a Kundalini session where I feel like I energetically really sucked everything up into me and set my intentions. And are those things that contributed to the success? I don't know, but I do know that I have a baby in my arms right now, all these months later. So I think something that's really important that I want to stress is, you know, taking care of your body and your health. And that also extends to mentally, like really getting as relaxed as you can during this process that is not necessarily the most relaxing, right? And being mindful of what you're putting in your body, and, you know, everything surrounding it. I think that that's really important. And I was really mindful of that prior and then during the whole process.
No, absolutely. And I was going to rat you out. If you don't tell the kumbaya moment, I'm about to rat you out in front of all the people. Yeah.
I really did. I had that moment. You know, we went to the ocean and sat there and just called him into existence. I lit a candle that night too and said his whole name. So, you know, I think that was something for me. And even if people don't believe in that, it's about taking steps to put my mind as at ease as possible, which I think just naturally balances your hormones and things like that.
Well, and that makes sense. It truly is like about mindfulness. However, and I always say we meet patients where they are. However you land, we want to find you where you are to make you the calmest, get you into the right place. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I'm officially handing the mic over to you. I'd love for you to talk to our amazing panel who's taken time.
Perfect. Amazing. I want to talk because we do have a reciprocal IVF couple in here as well. Maritza and Helen, you guys are in here, right? I got to go to the grid. Hello. I just want to talk because I know that I've seen some questions come up regarding reciprocal IVF, and I just want to touch on your story a little bit as well. And just how did you guys kind of come into things? What was some challenges? What did you come to learn through this journey? If we could just touch on that.
Sorry. Okay. Well, I know when you were saying about cleansing and changing habits, I stopped smoking. So I figured that would be a very big factor. So actually with reciprocal IVF, I'm assuming that's when she would carry like my egg.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. We didn't do that just yet. What we did, we went through with IVF. We tried IUI first. It was not successful. I think I was stressing so much, crying so much because you're hormonal all the time, but you do your best to just relax and just let your body do its thing. And, you know, kind body kind of guides you all the way through. But finally with IVF, we got it on our first try. We found out a year today. Today's my birthday. So that's when we found out we were officially pregnant on my birthday. So today's a wonderful day to just have this conversation. But we have 2 more embryos frozen. So reciprocal will be happening with my wife, Helen. So we'll get back to you on the reciprocal part.
In a couple years from now.
Okay. And did age play a factor in that all, like with you going first or anything like that? What was the deciding factor?
Yes, I turned 38 today. So
happy birthday.
That's a big deal. I was like, I'm not getting pregnant. My chances are just decreasing. I'm freaking out. My mom's telling me my eggs are drying out. And I was just like, oh, I need to do this now. She's 29. So I said, you know what? I'll go first and then we'll come back to you.
Nice. So when do you plan on going back to do the reciprocal? How many years?
I would say like 4 years from now. Because we're planning next year. So she's going to carry another one. And then I will have to that. Because we have 2 more frozen.
And the cool thing is that they did the genetic testing, and that's how. And with genetic testing, aside from ruling out any kind of developmental, issues, we can find out the gender. So now we know we had 2 boys and 1 girl. So we started with the boy. Now we have a girl and the boy frozen. So the girl's next, and I think she'll be carrying the boy.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice. And was there anything that came up along the way that you that surprised you about the process that maybe you didn't know, or that was just something outside of your expectations?
My job is very demanding. I'm in law enforcement, so I can't just drop what I'm doing half the time to run and continue with the cycles and the injections and the medications. But I had to do that. I had to kind of take a step back. And that did surprise me because I thought I had this flexible schedule. and I really didn't. So I kind of just had to prioritize and say, let me just back off from some things at work and then just concentrate on everything that I had to focus on. The injections to me was a huge surprise. I didn't realize there were so many, and I didn't realize the needle was so long, but you kind of just get over it eventually. And she loves that kind of stuff, so she played nurse for a few months.
I earned the book.
Yeah, exactly. You had a big hand in this. And touching on the medications, I want to talk to the two women that we have in here that did egg freezing, because you essentially went through a similar process in terms of taking the injections and things like that to prepare your bodies. Was there anything that surprised you or didn't was different than your expectations?
Do you mean in terms of the process or the actual injections themselves?
Either, I'm both, honestly. The process, whether it be literal or your emotional process through it, yeah, or the actual injections themselves. A lot of people I know, and I'm reading in the sidebar that a lot of people ask about the injections. Are they intense? Are they painful? What are we talking here? I know, taking that actual tactile step can be daunting, I think, and intimidating to some people. So if you guys could share your experience on that, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, so I have to actually, I think she's on the call, but Hina is one of the PAs, and I think you guys put amazing YouTube instructional videos. I obviously, I had zero experience on how to inject anything, and so I was nervous about that. But I mean, it was easy. It was actually one of the things that didn't stress me out, as I was on the second day of injections. And so I think that was one of the easier part of the processes. Blood work is another scenario that's probably specific to me, but I mean, still was a very easy part of the process as well. I think the part in terms of my journey that perhaps was not easiest, and you started to allude to this a little bit, was the emotional part, but also like sort of it's still a bit uncertain until you actually get to your procedure day and you find out how many eggs they took out and then how many were good enough quality to freeze. And so for me, that was probably the most, I guess, daunting part, because I ended up doing 2 rounds. And the reason is the first round, we weren't able to freeze any of them, even though we were able to take a couple out. And that was purely because of the quality of my eggs. And then the second round was way more successful because we changed our treatment plan. And so I think it was certainly a journey for me, a bit of up and down. And but I was at the Fifth Avenue, the Bryant Park, excuse me, not the Bryant Park, the Fifth Avenue location in New York, and the team there just figured out a new treatment plan for me, and we were successful in the second round. So that was kind of it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I also want to commend you just for keeping that positivity and not losing hope after that first round of egg retrieval attempting, because I know it can be that's one thing. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves as women to have success right off the bat, and we blame ourselves if it doesn't happen. And I think it's very hard to keep morale up when you are getting not the results that are ultimately desired. So look at that. That's a perfect example of sticking with it. What about you, Shanae?
So, okay. Do you want to know the real answer of like what was the most surprising thing?
I would love to know the real answer.
And I like, this could be just like totally a me thing and not like an anybody else thing, but I had like the craziest discharge, and I know we're not supposed to talk about discharge in the world, but it was crazy. I was like, I'm Spider-Woman. But that was like a separate TMI thing for myself. But I think the injections were easier than I thought they were going to be, but I got exhausted from doing that. I was just like, I'm so overdoing these. After like day 5, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this to be done. I was lucky to have my trigger shots come pretty early on in the process. I think another expectation that I just wasn't really, I wasn't fully prepared for is I felt like kind of fully pregnant, even though I just did egg freezing. And like literally my boyfriend was like, you're walking around like you're 5 months pregnant. I was like waddling down the hallway and I just felt like I was like carrying bricks, which like was kind of cool in a other sense. Cause I was like, wow, things are like really happening. If the discharge wasn't enough, like I was like, wow, there's things going on. And then I think the other thing is that after for 2 weeks, I really was still feeling pretty like out of it. The recovery was a little bit longer than I expected, but of course your body just went and did something miraculous. And I think I kind of was like, okay, 2 weeks, we're done. And then I was like, oh, there's still recovery. And so just being kind to myself during that time and not pushing myself to, you know, get fully back to normal, I think was great. And then if I could give a tip to anyone doing this, like just do really nice things for yourself during that time. Like as much time as you can take off of work. I know that's a luxury for everybody right now, but just like being really nice to yourself. I like did lots of beauty treatments. I did face masks every day. I went and like got a massage. Don't stress yourself about like not working out, any of that. Like that really helped me just kind of like make the time feel like a gift to myself rather than like, ugh, I have to go through this.
Whitney, can I say something about stress and kindness? I hear it because it's a recurring, I'm hearing people talk about it and it's something I think about a lot and hear a lot from patients. I think there's two things when I hear you talk about, you know, your sort of like your efforts to sort of minimize your stress and sort of put that positivity out into the universe. I think that is, and I think that connects to like being kind to yourself. I think those two things, like just really to stop blaming. It's just, if you're trying to get pregnant and you're not getting pregnant, stop the blame, stop the self-hate, or if you're preserving, either way, either you're trying to get pregnant and you're not, and there's so much negativity in that feeling. And I think that there's like guilt and like you feeling like it's your fault or it's your choice or something like that, which causes stress. And then people feel guilty about feeling stressed because people are telling that the reason you're not getting pregnant is because you're stressed, and it's just this really negative feedback cycle. And I think the same thing happens to women who are preserving. There's like a negativity and like, well, why do I have to preserve? Like the world's telling me I should already be pregnant or I should already be partnered. And so there's like stress in that too, that similarly sort of propagates this negative feedback cycle. And none of it is anybody's fault. And none of it is anybody's choice. And everybody who's coming forward to a clinic is just seeking help to sort of move forward and to do what they need to do to either preserve their fertility or to get pregnant. And so I think the other side to that is exactly what you're talking about, is just commend yourself for doing that. Like commend yourself for getting up and making that choice and getting the information, even if it's hard, even if it's not what you want to do. And in the process, not beating yourself up and realizing it's not your fault and it's not your choice. And whatever it is that you do to be kind to yourself, if that's just like stopping that right then and there, or if it's all the things that Shanae was talking about, or if it feels good to get a face mask, just stop the self-hate and to try to be kind to yourself and to indulge in whatever support for yourself. And maybe it's therapy. Maybe you're gonna do therapy 3 times a week, or maybe you're gonna take a mindfulness course, or maybe you're gonna, whatever it is that feels good to you, that is like your process of being kind to yourself is really important. So
Can I just add to that, Dr. Brower? I do want to say, going back to my original story of after the first round, I can attest to that. I think having your own support system is huge in this process, regardless of what process you chose to do for your fertility. And I was fortunate enough, I had a little group chat going with all my closest girlfriends, and they were really my cheerleaders. So in addition to the Kind Body team, you had a group of your people, so to speak, and my family, to be honest, who was just supporting you the entire way and saying exactly what you're saying. So I would say that that's my biggest advice.
Yeah, and support is important, and I think also getting support from people who understand this is important. Tracy and I did this really cool small event the other day. It was like a group of 10 women who are just supporting each other through this journey. I don't know I can't remember how they found each other, but I do think having support from your family and your friends is important, but an extra level of support from somebody who knows what you're going through is really essential.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off that by just saying, commend yourself for being in this workshop, right? Like right off the bat, because you're taking the initiative to gain more information. And we've literally spent, or I can say at least for myself, and I think a lot of women, we are fed a very small amount of information our entire lives. So having it be put in our hands solely to do the work, and unbeknownst to us, like we don't even know that we're supposed to put in the work to re-educate ourselves, right? So just being here, I think is great that you guys are all in here. And I also, because I don't work for Kindbody or anything like that, I want to toot some horns of Kindbody in this, because I think this is really important too. And it is, find a clinic that is as invested in your process as you are. I mean, obviously nobody's going to be as invested as you are, but I think very important to feel like the clinic and the doctors and the team that you're working with is championing for you as well. And I felt that support, and I felt that really mutual investment with the Kindbody team. And I've recommended several of my friends who I had a couple the other day, a friend of mine who called me and was talking about, they were going to the San Francisco office, and she was talking about the doctor, the Kindbody team up there, the doctor coming in and they discovered more follicles than they thought previously. And she's like, and the doctor came in and hugged me and we were all so excited, and that made such a difference. And it's like feeling that mutual investment. It's really important because you want to feel that support. So thank you guys for being that, because I can say, I think it really made a huge difference in my process. So I just wanted to give some accolades where they were due. But I also want to talk to Heaven and Rita over here, because you guys are starting your journey. How far along in beginning it where are you at right now with things?
A bit of a background. We've been together 7 years and married for 4. And 1 year into the marriage, we said, okay, let's have kids, right? So we go and get a sonogram appointment, and they found fibroids. And then they said, well, it'll shrink, just drink cranberry juice. I stock up on cranberry juice, and then it grew to the size of grapefruit, about 3, right? Yeah. And then one was really huge. So
one
then,
big one and like 3 other small ones.
Yeah, and I had to have open myomectomy.
In 2016.
Yep, and then had the open myomectomy. I think it's 2017. We got married 2016.
Oh, okay. The following year.
So we got married 2016. Had the open myomectomy 2017.
Right.
And then after healing from the open myomectomy, they said, "Oh, well," I said, "Okay, well, I can get pregnant now, right?" And they said, "Well, your tubes are blocked from the surgery." So I was like, "Oh my God!" So they said, "Well, we can give you another surgery to unblock them, but it's not guaranteed." I said, "Absolutely not." So thanks to YouTube, I figured out a way to unblock them naturally, and I was successful at it. So that was this January.
And you did the other HSG?
Yep, I did the HSG test, and they said, well, tubes are unblocked. I said, you serious? For real this time? And we cried because we felt like, there was always these blocks. Yeah, for 3 years. And then the pandemic happened. And with all of the hurdles, it was different clinics that we didn't really feel comfortable with. So I think in September, was it August, September, Kindbody, we did like a virtual consultation with Kindbody, and it was like, I think we're in love with them.
Yeah, and before even Kindbody, we went to another fertility clinic where, as you said, when they didn't really make us feel as home, like they weren't in our best interest as we were invested in it. So it's like we weren't really comfortable, but
at all.
Yeah, the first day, like I'm more like a visual person. Like she could talk to my ear off. Like if I don't see it, I'm not. Like I'm more like, okay, I need to see it, I need to feel it. So from the moment we walked through the offices of like Kindbody and we sat down, I was like, like it was just my spirit. It just felt like home. So
yeah,
it was really cool to do that.
it was. And the thing that was great was they explained everything in the virtual consultation. So by the time we went in, we had everything tested, which was that wasn't the case in other fertility clinics. It was like, well, come back and then come back and do those and then come back and do more. It was like, here's everything. Let's check everything. And then we got all the results. So now everything is clear. Womb is clean and nice and healthy. Body is perfect. And right now, actually, we have to choose the donor. So we narrowed it down to about 5. Got the genetic test results back. And
can I just ask, are you guys using a sperm bank, or are you a known donor?
We haven't heard the best stories with the known donors, and I think we tried it and then they would like change their mind. So we said, you know what, we're gonna go with the bank. We feel like that'll be the best bet for us, right? So yeah, that's where we are. So literally we can do the IUI this month. I think you know, the whole ovulation cycle set up. So it's like once we choose the donor and order the sperm, and and we can do IUI. So I would say that I have been basically, because the journey has started 3 years ago and we haven't even done a procedure yet, I have been obsessed with everything preconception care. Food, exercise, affirmations, acupuncture. I'm trying it all. So it's big. Like when you said you went to the beach, sounds right up my alley. Just what you said, what you did. I believe it, especially after I was able to unblock my tubes naturally with Chinese herbal tea.
Right. I'm seeing a lot of people, I'm seeing people ask, and I am also curious, and I don't know if it's a long process or if you could just give, how did you unblock your...
Well, it's so crazy because everyone go, you did what? And I'm like, wow.
I make a video.
I do have to make a video and just explain it. But I said, well, I was like, okay, this has to be a way that this can happen. I went on YouTube, literally typed in YouTube how to unblock tubes naturally, fallopian tubes naturally, and watched every single video that came up. Everyone. I researched it. I downloaded apps. I was in forums, Facebook groups, and a lot of them were saying that they took like 3 specific Chinese herbal teas and castor oil with the pack or something like that. I bought everything off Amazon that I'm addicted to. And I didn't use the castor oil packs. I just took the tea every morning. I mixed it, took it every morning for like probably 3 months. And a lot of people said that, you know, oh, it didn't work for me. So I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that it works, is that it clears. And some women said that they felt like liquid come through them, like clear, as if they knew it was clearing. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. And it happened to me like after 2 weeks, and I still did it for 3 months.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
That was a success for you. I mean, that is, you can learn a lot. See the power of information.
I said, okay, what else can I do because now I want to be fertile myrtle. I want to do the IUI, and I just wanted to take.
Right. I know. Good luck to you guys. Do you both have any questions for anybody that has been in here that has gone through the process? I mean, I myself have gone through IUI, and then we have egg freezing.
I guess everything for me now is like, how did you prepare yourself? You know, like, did you cut things out of your routine? And was it hard for you to cut back on your psyche? You know, because sometimes you can just try to do so much. You know, it's hard to not think about it. You know, you understand, like you lose sleep or you stress yourself out when you're not supposed to be stressed. Things like that.
Sure. I mean, so first of all, like I said, anything that I say, this was just my process. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what I can say for sure was a contributing factor. But things that I did before that I felt benefited me in December. So I started the process in January. In December, I did a water fast. Again, that's an extreme thing. But I've done fasting before, but I did a water fast for 7 days. I felt like it completely did a hormonal reset for me. That was just me personally. Again, I'm not a doctor. To each his own. But I really felt like it cleansed everything out of my body and made me in the best possible shape. You know, before this pandemic, I worked in nightlife a lot. I'm out late hours. You know, I wanted to make sure that everything was in line. I also cut out drinking. I don't smoke or anything like that, but I kind of removed as much toxicity as I could from my life. I'm plant-based. Does that have anything to do with it? I'd like to think so, because I want to promote a plant-based lifestyle. But, you know, I mean, you know, like I said, to each his own, but these are just things I did. And then, yeah, when we get into talking about, the mentality behind it, right? It's a lot of going into the process of IUI. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. You know, it's like getting in there, getting everything in time. The window is very small. You know, I think prior to this, you kind of think that you can get pregnant it's kind of like a crapshoot at any time, you know, if you're in the circumstances that would apply to, like a heterosexual relationship, for example. I knew I wasn't going to be conceiving anytime soon, being a member of the queer community, for example. But, you know, when in reality, it's a very small time frame. So getting in and getting after the insemination, I would just recommend like doing and it's so much easier said than done, but doing as much as you can to put your mind elsewhere, because you are going to feel compelled to take pregnancy tests way earlier than you should. And you will justify your reasoning. At least I will. I say you because I'm telling myself that, but you know, like I was justifying myself like, well, I'll just take this one. I happen to have this one, so I might as well take it. And you drive yourself crazy, essentially, you know? And as much as you can do to kind of remove that, because the fact of the matter is it will be what it will be, you know? And just taking a step back from that. But, you know, also be gentle with yourself overall. If you do take those tests because you just can't not do it, then don't beat yourself up because you took the test. You know, I think that's important, you know, having grace with yourself throughout this whole process. Like Dr. Brower said too, it's just really, really important to be patient with yourself, and to be graceful with yourself, and you know, have faith in things and keep at it and stay as positive as possible, and stay as healthy as possible. You know, definitely be mindful of that. But I think that you guys are, I mean, you're clearly doing the work because you've cleared your womb of things. So good for you. I just want, and any other questions? I don't want to cut you off, but I think we're coming to the end of our time here. Am I right, Tracy? Or is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was our only thing, was like, what did they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. All right. Well, I think that is that on that. Thank you guys all for coming. It's amazing to see the Kind Body team again. They're like family to me. It's amazing to hear these stories. And thank you guys all for tuning in and taking that initiative on your health and your fertility. And also, if anybody, I just want to put this disclaimer out, and if anybody has questions for me in my process, you can hit me up on Instagram. I like to connect with people too, if you need help in anything. Whitney.
And that's the same for if you want to reach out, if you have any additional questions, we definitely will have this up on our YouTube channel after. So please subscribe. Is that the right thing? I always see people like subscribe down below. Heaven and Rita, you better tell me, what's the right, to get people subscribe? Is that what I'm asking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Comment, subscribe.
And really, you know, really talking about kindness. We're heading into the holidays, everyone. And I know it's hard. Maybe the blessing of COVID, we're not going to be with everyone's aunts, uncles, and 20 babies, where sometimes it's hard to be around people. But I spoke to a fertility coach today, and she said something that I thought I really took away, and it resonated with me, is that if you have to be with family, and if you feel you're going to be sensitive around babies or people asking you stupid questions about why have you not had babies yet, what's going on, is we can't control what other people say to you, but what we can control is how we react and how we prepare. So go in with your emotional armor on and know that you're not going to allow those things to get to you, and really truly be kind to yourself. I mean, that's what, I mean, we are kind body, so we got to be kind, right? So thank you. Thank you, every one of our panelists, for attending and sharing your stories, because we can talk all day about the medical aspect. We can rah, rah, rah and tell you how great we are, but really your personal experiences and these beautiful babies that we have on camera today. It's so happy. I wish we could be all together so I could kiss each of those babies a lot. Happy birthday, Maritza. Oh, there's our boy. Look at him. Oh my goodness, so many babies. Again, Fertility Journeys is the discount code. Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe now. Now I got it, now I'm all in, okay. And thank you, and thank you to my amazing team. We have physicians, Dr. Garvin, I saw Jasmine, Dr. Pedroso is on here too, and Hina, I really appreciate you. I know you're so busy and you always come and answer questions and help out so much, and Lisa and every one of the Kindbody team, thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Bye everybody.